Guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I really appreciate all of the support in the search for Nancy Guthrie. A couple of interesting updates today I'm going to get to in this episode. First of all, I got some new information. There was all sorts of questions about Annie Guthrie's car, why it wasn't returned, what was taking so long. I got some specific information about what was happening behind the scenes there that I'm going to get into in this episode. That makes sense, and I go through it all with retired FBI agent Maureen O'Connell, my friend, who's also been looking into the case. So you're going to hear from her. I'm going to get into that. Also, really the big news of the day is this effort to recall Pima County Sheriff Nanos. Obviously, there's been a lot of criticism of the sheriff ever since the Nancy Guthrie case came about. And it's interesting, right when I got to Tucson, I realized pretty quickly that there was drama with the sheriff. I mean, there were a lot of people immediately who started contacting me, talking about the sheriff, who didn't like the sheriff, which, you know, sometimes I take with a grain of salt just because there's always politics involved. And, you know, I was sort of just focused on the situation with Nancy, but I started to realize and peel back the layers that, you know, there's been this ongoing issue with the sheriff and people who are not pleased with him. And now there is this recall effort, which is pretty serious. There's this Arizona Republican congressional candidate who's initiated the process of recalling Sheriff Nanos. His name is Daniel Gutierrez. And basically they have to get signatures. They have 120 days to gather 120,000 signatures, which is about 25% of the total votes that were cast for the sheriff in the 2024 election. And they say they're going to try to get that number, so 120,000 signatures in 60 days. And then if the recall is successful, Nanos will then have the option to either resign or call for a special election. I've also heard that there's talk with some of the county supervisors that they're going to talk to the sheriff. And, you know, there kind of seems to be a push among some people that they want the sheriff to just sort of retire on his own. The sense that I get just from my interactions with the sheriff is that he probably would not be willing to do that. And whether he even should, I don't know. I mean, he's an elected sheriff. But there are obviously a growing number of people, it seems, in Tucson who are not happy with Sheriff Nanos. There's people who didn't like him before. I mean, he won by pretty tight margin. But it seems like there's a lot of people who are not happy with his handling specifically of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. And again, I'm going to get into that in this episode more, especially with Maureen. Is that fair? Is it fair to hold him responsible for the way the investigation has gone so far? We'll talk about that more in a couple of minutes. Sheriff Nanos did respond to this recall attempt, saying, "We are aware of the recall and it is the right of the people. We'll always honor the will of the people, and that's what makes democracy." Which kind of reminded me of something when I interviewed him. He brought that up to me too. And you guys remember, I kind of had an awkward exchange with him because right when I went into his office to interview him, he pulled out his phone and you know, wasn't happy with some of my reporting and some of the reporting on News Nation about him. But he said to me, he's like, "Look, I'm elected. I won fair and square, so people cannot like me, but you know, enough people liked me to elect me. So here I am." So it'll be interesting to see the way this whole recall effort unfolds. Again, I'm going to talk to retired FBI agent Maureen O'Connell about that now, and also just about some of the other developments in the case over the last couple of days. What I learned about Annie Guthrie's car, what I've learned that FBI agents are asking neighbors, and I haven't talked to Maureen in probably about a week, so I wanted to get her take on some of the latest developments. Hey Maureen, thank you for joining me. I feel like I haven't seen you in, I guess it's been maybe a week or so. How are you?
I know, it feels strange. I missed you.
Are you having a good day?
Yeah, it's been about a week. Yeah, everything's good. Working hard, got a lot of stuff going on.
You're always busy.
I know.
You don't sit still.
Nope.
I want to start off asking you, because this is sort of developing right now, and it doesn't really come as a surprise, but Sheriff Nanos, the Pima County Sheriff, there's now officially like an effort for a recall, which is, you know, a whole legal process where you get a certain amount of signatures and you can try to basically push him out of office. And, when I was in Tucson, there's a lot of people who are very frustrated with him, as you can imagine. Some people didn't like him before. Some people now are just upset with the way that the case has been handled. What do you think? I mean, do you think now that we're almost 2 months out, it's a fair time to start to be critical in that way?
I really hate being critical of my fellow law enforcement officers, but I just think, you know, I just don't know what to think about this guy. And my understanding from reporting that Megyn Kelly did the other day, that he had something like a 95% disapproval rate before this case, which is pretty shocking. So, if those people feel it's time for him to go, it might just be time for him to go. It's unfortunate, but I don't know. Have you heard anything good about him?
Well, and what you brought up is true. I forget what they call it. It's like the union does this survey, and I
Yeah.
interviewed the union president, and
Yeah.
basically they survey all the deputies. A confidence vote of no confidence.
Yeah,
That's what
vote of no confidence for sure.
That's right. And it was like, I forget what the percentage was, but it was vast majority of the deputies voted that they don't have confidence in the sheriff. And even when he was up for re-election, which I've never heard of this before, the deputies wore masks in the uniform and had like signs for the other candidate outside the sheriff's office, which is really a strange. I mean, you don't really see that happening normally.
No,
I mean,
I've never heard of that.
yeah, the rank and file, from what I could tell, really does not seem to like Nanos. And I've tried to kind of like take the politics out of it because he is a Democrat, and a lot of the sheriffs in Arizona are Republicans, and I don't know if politics comes into play here, but it doesn't seem like they. I mean, the vote of no confidence just is what it is. Yeah, so they're not confident in him.
No. And I read part of his discipline file, which was pretty shocking to me. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that before either. So that was weird. I mean, granted, it was a long, long time ago, but still, that's a lot of those things that he has in his jacket would not be survivable at all in today's law enforcement environment, especially in California, Arizona, Nevada. Wouldn't happen. So maybe it's just time for him to rock and roll and forget about it, move forward.
He worked this was years ago, what you're talking about. He worked for El Paso police, and I want to say this was like 30 years ago, but you're right. I mean, a local reporter went back and I had to like dig through paperwork and find his old file, which was still there in El Paso, and he had some serious infractions, and it sounds like kind of a forced, not retirement, but he left the job. I think
pending. It said something like pending firing.
Yeah, like almost so he wouldn't get fired, Yeah. And then there were these questions about his resume because the years were off from when he left. But I mean, the bottom, when you're a sheriff, I mean, you know how it is. It's like he's elected by the people now. So
they elected him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like a police chief where, they can just get fired. I mean, it's,
Right.
He's an elected official.
Right. And they elected him. So the sheriff, whenever you're dealing with a sheriff versus a police department, there's just naturally going to be more politics involved, but not so much amongst the rank and file, because honestly, I worked with people for 15, 20 years. I didn't know what their politics were, and I didn't care. As long as we're all mission focused, getting the job done, then that's all, that's all you need.
Yeah. I also wonder now that they have this task force, which when I left seemed to be more of a well-oiled machine than in the beginning. Where it's the FBI, it's in the FBI building, and then they also have the Pima County detectives as part of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if they ousted the sheriff now, would that really have an impact on the investigation, do you think, at this point?
No. The continuity, no, it would not.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But
because it's not like he's holding the whole thing together.
Yeah. When I got there, though, in the beginning, it was like, wow, this is like I don't want to say SHIT storm. like it was already drama with the sheriff. You could tell. Like they had already had the vote of no confidence. And people were coming out of the woodwork immediately, like, you got to look into the sheriff. So I think this has been, before Nancy Guthrie, this was like a very volatile situation with the sheriff, I could tell.
And whenever you have the union reps involved, though, what I've seen historically is, sometimes the union really wants something, and the police chief or the sheriff isn't willing to go to bat for that, or that's not the hill they're going to die on.
Yeah.
Then they can drum everyone up to file a vote of no confidence on them. But because I've seen that happen a couple of times. But this seems to precede that, and this seems to supersede that also, and it seems to go along with what we have witnessed ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree with you. Yeah, because when I've covered unions, the unions a lot of times never like the boss,
Right.
They never get the money they deserve. But this does seem different. I mean, they really don't like this man. You can tell. So I guess we'll see what happens with them getting the signatures. What do you think? So I was able to confirm, we knew the January 11th date was significant because they were asking neighbors for video from January 11th. Now I'm hearing from neighbors that they're also asking about the 24th, specifically for video, which would have been the Saturday before Nancy went missing. And both of those days, January 11th and the 24th, are both on weekends.
Right.
What stands out to you there?
Well, if I'm doing an op and I'm going to do it on a Saturday night, then I'm going to do dry runs on Saturday nights. I want to know what it's like. What lights are on? Is she generally home? Does she stay up late? Is she watching TV? And the more you think about this, about someone having to case this house, the less likely it seems that it would be a family member, because they would probably already know all this information, right? I mean, I don't know. So I would say they were casing the place and doing a dry run for a Saturday evening hit.
Yeah.
I mean, by hit, I mean you're hitting the house, you're going there, you're doing this.
And I wonder if the person has a job during the week. Is that why they're doing this on the weekend?
They may not, but they may not have a job at all. Their job right now is to abduct her, or whatever they're planning on, whatever the plan was. And so if your plan is to abduct her at 1:00 in the morning on a Saturday, when you go there, it's going to be on Saturdays. Because for all they knew, if they're not a family member, then they're not going to know. She may have someone stay there with her Friday through Sundays. I know an old person that has someone come and stay every Friday through Monday morning. So those are the things you want to know. Is there a car in the driveway? Is there another car in the garage? Is someone else in the house? Are you going to have to fight two people instead of one? Or just have complete compliance? Or is there someone else there you need to worry about?
Megyn Kelly also reported, and I don't really have any sources within, I don't know Savannah Guthrie. I know Megyn used to work at NBC, I think she probably knows people, obviously. But she reported that Savannah Guthrie is furious over these allegations. People saying stuff about the family and about her sister and Tommaso. Where are your thoughts on that right now? I mean, I guess it would make sense why she would be upset.
Of course she's upset. I mean, because, Annie and Tommaso have a child that's young. This whole thing has to be unbelievably traumatic. And everyone was blaming Tommaso and Annie to a certain extent. And you think the kids at school aren't hitting him with that every day? So that kid is suffering even more than he normally would, with his grandmother being abducted and Lord knows what else. So I can understand that, but I can also understand why people are asking all these questions. Because
Right.
when it was it seemed like every other day for the first week, the police or FBI are over at their house or in their backyard, or they seize the car and the car's there for 40 days. I mean, those are all solid indicators of someone being involved in some way, shape, or form. So it's normal to ask those questions. But when the sheriff says that they're not suspects anymore, then, we've got to pump the brakes and be patient. And it's not easy to be patient in a situation like this. Your mind just races. I mean, have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and thought, my God, where is poor Nancy? I know I have. A lot of us have.
Yeah. It's funny when I got home, not funny, but it's something about me getting back home. Like, you're so in the zone when I was there in Tucson for like 42 days. Like, a lot of those questions that like didn't really hit me until I got home, like just kind of laying in bed here back at home, like, gosh,
Feeling
we
safe.
don't really know where Nancy, you know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
think I was just so go there. Like, kind of those bigger questions didn't really set in for me until I got home. And I'm like, gosh, this really is crazy, you know?
Yeah, well, distance does that, That's why, when they say it's good to get away, sometimes it is. And you really immersed yourself in there. You really immersed yourself there completely and did such a great job. And so many people appreciate that. But then you get home and you can have, breathe a little bit and you're thinking, wow, where is Nancy? I mean, it is shocking to me that we don't have more information right now.
Yeah.
It is shocking.
With her car, with Annie and Tommaso's car, I did learn something new. I don't know if I haven't seen anyone else report this. I don't know if you knew this. So what I was told is one of the reasons that it was so delayed in returning it is because it wasn't like they ripped the car apart like with Ryan Koberger's car, like where they took the seats out and everything, but it was something with the electronics that they did, like some kind of download of the electronics that somehow messed things up. And the sheriff's office took the car to the dealership to get it all fixed, which apparently like was taking a lot of time.
That's interesting because my sister had all the electronics and everything are in that radio system in the front. She ordered a brand new vehicle, and she gets it home. The whole thing stops working, so they had to take that whole system out of the dashboard. When they did that, it was like this whole mesh network back there. They had to tear. I mean, it was irreparable. So they had to order a whole new thing, wait for it to get there, test it. They had issues again. This is my sister's car, not Annie's car. They had issues again and had to order some other parts before they were able to make it whole and knock on wood, But that actually is the first thing that makes sense about what's taken them so long. But they could have just said that.
I know, because I asked my source, so was it like Koberger's car? Because I actually got pictures of Koberger's car where it was like the cushions were off and the gear shifter was off. They took the steering wheel off. And he's like, no, they didn't do anything like that. They didn't want to damage the car, but they messed up the electronics when they did.
In order to get it out, you have to, yeah. In some cars, not all cars. A well-designed car, it shouldn't be that way. It's kind of like a car where in order to do anything with the transmission, you have to take the whole transmission out. So it's going to cost you an extra $1,800. That kind of... That's not a well-designed car, in my opinion, but what do I know?
Yeah. And just one last thing on Savannah that I've thought about is, I didn't know her, but I've seen her before at big stories. Like, when the Today Show will send out the anchor to be live on the scene. Big crimes. I don't know if she was at Coburg. She's been that, I was standing outside the house. Like, she's been that person before. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I feel terrible for her now on the other side
so
of
it's going to cost you an extra $1,800. That kind of that's not a well-designed car, in my opinion, but what do I know?
Yeah. And just one last thing on Savannah that I've thought about is, I didn't know her, but I've seen her before at big stories. Like, when the Today Show will send out the anchor to be live on the scene. Big crimes. I don't know if she was at Koberger, but, she's been that, I was standing outside the house, like she's been that person before. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I feel terrible for her now on the other side of this. I mean, I can't even imagine. I feel so bad for her. But at the same time, it's like she's also been the one asking these hard questions before when she's covered these stories. And she's also been the one standing outside the house. So even though I feel terrible for her, it is kind of
I've seen her be pretty tough on people that I felt were victims of things in the past. I'm not going to hold that against her. Obviously, this is a terrible thing, but she yeah, it's to the point where she should almost, to a certain extent, understand.
Right.
The person I think about all the time for some reason is her brother, the fighter pilot, because he's like a stoic, just the way that he's handled this whole thing, just like the quiet warrior. And from the photos, he looks just like his dad, doesn't he? And for him to go into battle, to fight for innocent people, to be safe and all that kind of stuff, to have this happen, his mom makes it to 84, and now this is just indescribable.
Yeah. And you could tell when he made that one video, I mean, he's clearly not someone, I don't think he's comfortable in the public eye. He's like, seems like he has a military personality.
Yes, but he would do anything. He would do anything for his mom, and that's why he did it. He didn't want, but he would do anything. He would do anything for his mom, and that's why he did it. He didn't want, I mean, like you said, he was not comfortable doing that. But I just, I mean, so many of us just wish there was something we could do to comfort any of them.
Yeah, I know.
But all we can do is keep the story alive, I guess.
I hope that, I don't know, I wonder what it feels like for them now, like for Annie. It's like, do you want things to kind of quiet down?
Well, Annie and Tommaso probably do, just for their son, for their own sanity. Everyone knows where they live. Everyone can get pretty close to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They would want it to slow down, but they still want everyone to look for their mom.
Did you see that one video? There was one of the streamers, which is like the people, who were out there was streaming with their phone, was outside their house. This was a couple days ago, and Tommaso came out. Did you see that on like Twitter or anything?
No.
And he came out and was clearly, I forget what he said, but it was like he was agitated that they were outside the house again, his house, which I can understand. I mean, I never went back to there. Once they were cleared and it was like, of course I went there remember when the police were inside and you could see the camera flash? I mean, I'm a reporter. I had to be there and I kept going back every day. But once they were cleared, it was kind of like, what's the point of hanging out outside their house,
Yeah. So what did he do?
So he was agitated. I mean, he was in the video, he came out the front door, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was like you kind of saw a different side of him, like he had enough. You know what I mean?
Whatever.
Yeah, which I could kind of sympathize with. Something else I wanted to ask you about Maureen, and I brought this up in an episode yesterday, and a few people were like, "Oh, you weren't listening to Maureen. She said this like weeks ago on your show." They were like, "You didn't hear Maureen say it before."
Yeah, you need to pay attention, Brian.
I know. You
only have 877 videos of people. You should know every word.
I always listen to you carefully, but it was actually one of the neighbors that brought this up again to me, was about the security door on.
Yeah, I did tell you that.
You did.
I told you it's so hard to breach those doors. It's impossible. And the other thing I wanted to say with regard to last night, because I always watch Steve Moore, because I don't know if your listeners know, but Steve and I are very good friends, worked together for a long time, love him. But just because your friend has the key on the inside, that's not normal. The inside should be a regular lock that you should be able to lock or unlock. It's actually a fire hazard to have only the key for egress. You should be able to unlock it just with your finger and go out, either with a little deadbolt or the thing in the center. It should have both. That would be my recommendation. So from the outside, you need a key. From the inside, you should be able to lock it like you would any lock, and also a little deadbolt above that.
Yeah, well, I looked at it more closely today, and it may have a regular lock on the inside, because I noticed today it's not just bars. It's like a mesh, like a metal mesh. So
yeah, it's that heavy metal mesh.
You wouldn't be able to reach around.
No.
You know what I mean?
We have those all over California. You find those in places where you need extra security, A, or B, which is what's happening in Nancy's house. If it's hot out, but you want to leave the door open all night, like in California over here, people have, those doors are everywhere, even in relatively safe neighborhoods, because if you want the breeze coming through, a lot of people don't have air conditioning and don't want it, they're going to have it in Arizona, obviously, but in California. So you can leave that door wide open. And I used to have one, and I would leave that door open at night because I had two deadbolts and the doorknob locked. So I would just leave it open back then. I don't think I would now.
Well, it seems like it'd be pretty safe, right? I mean,
Yeah,
as
it's
long
pretty
as
safe. And it makes a lot of noise. When you're trying to break in that thing, you're making noise. And we know that from law enforcement. So when Steve was talking about the breaching tools that we have and how you breach, sometimes we would have to hook it up to a winch on a truck and rip the door off in order to get in. And, and it's extremely dangerous. It makes noise. And what does that do? That wakes up the occupants. And if they're armed and dangerous, which is one of the only reasons we're pulling a door off at 4 or 5 in the morning, now they're awake. And it's, you took a dangerous situation and made it even more dangerous. So you got to be very, very careful when you do that.
do you think it was locked? Because I think that would be
Yes.
a big component to this.
Yes, I absolutely think it's locked. The only way I would say it would be open is if someone that was in the house, like, the guy that was, let's say some person was delivering groceries and they purposefully unlocked it on their way out. Now that would just be the turn lock in the center of a doorknob, that wouldn't stop Nancy from flipping the deadbolt, which is what most of these doors have. And the reason I say that is because I know the neighbor said that hers is another way. They may have gotten that one on sale because that one should not be in a residence. You should never have a door. It's against the fire codes and everything. You can't have a door you shouldn't have a door where you need a key to exit the structure, just in case there's any type of emergency. But with so I've looked at and taken breaching classes and hundreds and hundreds of these doors. The ones in the interior, you can open manually with your hand without a key. So that would be my guess.
If you think it was locked, that would go back to the neighbor's theory of the person at the camera that we saw with the mask wasn't trying to get in probably wasn't trying to get in through the front door.
No, they were probably trying to cover the camera so that people couldn't see the condition Nancy was in when they took her out. That person went in the back door or some other place that was open. A lot of people, Nancy used to have that little dog. She could have left her slider unlocked just because it was in the habit of opening that slider to let the dog out in the middle of the night or something like that. But even that, I don't know many old ladies that leave their doors unlocked, especially, because Nancy's mom lost her husband around the same time my mom. She was a single mom to those 3 kids. That's what my mom was. So that mom is more like the mom and the dad. She has to take on these additional roles. So she would want her kids to be safe and their dad wasn't there and whatever. I don't know. Maybe I just have a hard time thinking that an 84-year-old lady by herself isn't going to lock doors. I just think as we get older, I'm far more security conscious now than I was 15 years ago. And I'm not nowhere near 84 years old.
I kind of go both ways on that because part of me is like, it's such a quiet neighborhood. The other neighbors said that people don't lock their doors. She's lived there since the 70s and may just be so comfortable there. No one's ever bothered her before. But then at the same time, the fact that she had cameras, unless the kids put them up, but if she wanted cameras, that would make me think that she was somewhat security conscious,
But I could easily see the kids putting the cameras up also because, Mom, I just want to be able to see, or if you fall in the driveway, how am I going to know, or anything like that.
Yeah. Like maybe
Or
Annie.
maybe her dog used to get loose, so they put up some cameras so I can, one of them can look on their phone instead of running over there all the time.
Yeah. I just heard, was that a bus that went by? I heard something.
Street sweepers.
Oh, the street sweepers.
The
But yeah, so
loud.
I don't know. I mean, because there's been some have reported that the sliding glass, I haven't been able to get this. Some have reported that the sliding glass door was left open, but we don't know.
Well, the sliding glass door is in play because if you watch that video carefully of the FBI walking the prosecutors through that crime scene, they're meticulously pointing out things that they think may have been disturbed. And that led them, those doors, I believe, led right into Nancy's bedroom. And so you saw them open the door and with glove, move the curtain over. There just were so many places to get DNA. And here's the other thing about the DNA in that house. This is why I'm so shocked they don't have good DNA. Because that guy had that bite light in his mouth. All right, you can turn it on and off while closing your jaw. But once you get in the house and you turn a light on or whatever, you're not going to keep that thing in your mouth the entire time. You can't call out commands.
Right.
You can't tell her what to do. You can't do it. You take it out and you put it in your pocket or something until you need it on the way out or whatever. Like maybe give the driver a 2 flash thing. But I still think that thing in his pocket is a walkie-talkie to get the driver to come around, or whatever. I think it was a walkie-talkie. But I cannot believe that just the motion of taking that bite light, putting it in your pocket, and then touching anything isn't going to leave saliva, which is a really good source, a solid source of DNA when you have just a bodily fluid.
Do you think that there's stuff from inside the house that they've done a really good job of keeping on the DL? I mean, with all the stuff that's leaked out, I kind of think that if there was some big smoking gun in the house, we probably would have heard about it by now. But do you think there could be something that the sheriff has been very careful? Because I will say, as many little tidbits as he lets out, from the beginning, every time me or anyone else has asked him about the inside of the house, he's very quick to say, we're not going to talk about what's inside the house.
I hope so. And I just cannot believe, I just really have a hard time believing that we're not in a better place investigatively than what it seems from the outside. And I've been on the inside on a lot of these big cases, and the press rarely, if ever, gets it right. So I'm hanging my hat on that. And that's why I'm maintaining optimism, even when everyone's like, why are you being so optimistic? There's no hope, I just can't go down that road yet, because I just know, I know the heart of the law enforcement officers working this thing. I know how hard they're doing it. I know how well trained they are. And, I would think that I'd be able to get DNA. And I would certainly, I think, be able to get it off that rug. You'd get something off that rug. If nothing else, you'd be getting the contents of the bottom of his boots. Those rugs are designed to pull debris off your shoes before you enter the house. And that debris could be anything from the hairs and fibers in his car, hairs, human hairs, dog hairs, whatever. There's a lot of information that you can find in shoe impressions and the debris from the bottom of a shoe or a boot. In this case, the shoes of that guy. I don't know. But with that bite light, there's no way he had that bite light in his mouth for 41 minutes. He could have taken it off and set it down somewhere, but he probably put it in his pocket. But once he touched it, his whole hand is covered in saliva.
Right.
You can't walk around, and I told you this before, even with a little flashlight, like this kind. Sometimes in a crime scene, when I would need both hands, I would have a little flashlight in my mouth. Nothing makes your mouth water more. Try it. It's not pleasant.
Something in your mouth like that, yeah.
Yeah, you have something in your mouth like that, your mouth starts watering.
Yeah. Well, listen, when the FBI went back that second time, remember, they closed everything down and their team went in to get it. Hopefully maybe that time they got more, but.
Well, I'm hoping, but we didn't see any alternate light source in there. We didn't see any blue light or black light or anything. Because I was asking.
They moved us down. Remember, they moved us way away during that. They wouldn't let us stay in
That's
front
good.
of the house anymore.
That's actually good.
Yeah.
They could have tape lifted the whole surface of that rug, but it didn't really look like it the next time someone went up there. But who knows? I hope they did. If they tape lifted that entire rug, that would have been great. And if they swabbed a good chunk of it, that too would have been great. Even if they broke it up into little like checkerboard squares and using distilled water and gauze did it, put it in a bag, did it in that lower one, put it in a bag, and just, on their hands and knees. That's what I would have done. And well, I would have taken the rug, no question about it.
Yeah,
But
people, a
also
lot
that
of people have
doorknob.
zeroed in, been confused why the rug is still there.
I'm very confused why the rug is still there. A lot of people say they would have
You're
taken
talking
the
about the
door.
rug in front of the front door, right? The outdoor one.
Yes,
Yeah.
the mat in front of the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
And I would have definitely taken that because it's easier to do it in the lab. You can use all these different light sources. You have everything there you need. It becomes a very calm process. And then you have two or three other people in there if you want, if you need, and you can say, guys, this is the plan. This is what I'm looking at doing. I'm going to do this first and then that or whatever. And yeah. The other thing is, I hope they did the doorknob. I'm sure they swabbed that doorknob because, again, with that bite light in his mouth, he may not have even realized it. If you look at at the balaclava that he had on, in that one image where he's looking up at the light and you can see his eyes so well, the face mask is a little bit askew. And I think that's from him, like if your nose itches under, like when you go skiing and you have that thing on your face, it's just natural to just do something like this. So if they did that and then touch the doorknob, which it looked like they touched the doorknob at one point, and or they touched the mount for the camera, the Nest camera, there should be DNA on that too. So perhaps they swabbed that entire thing. Okay, good. Then why aren't, we should be further along then. But, if they are doing, I keep looking at the Corey Richins case and I'm like, it took them a year to arrest her.
Yeah.
So if they're doing forensic genetic genealogy, it's going to take a while.
You were into the Corey Richins case, by the way.
That case was bananas, dude.
Yeah. I was totally I was so zeroed in on Nancy Guthrie.
Oh, you couldn't carve out any time for Corey Richins? Just
No,
kidding.
I was just, yeah, but you kept telling me oh, Corey Richins. Is there anything else, Maureen, that you think is important right now that's on your mind?
No, I just don't want this case to be about Sheriff Nanos. I want the case to be about Nancy Guthrie.
Yeah.
And so I don't really like the distraction. I just wish he would have gone through a PIO the whole time and just, kept his pie hole shut and just became, was like an administrator.
Yeah.
Give support to the
Yeah,
family if you need to.
I agree with you. And I tried to be, it's like as a reporter, you don't want to get sort of, people will try to hijack the narrative because, like I said, when we got there, it was obvious that a lot of people didn't like Sheriff Nanos before we got there. He won by 400 votes. So I was trying to sort of decipher, okay, or some people, did they just hate him anyway, and no matter what, they're going to say he's terrible, So
I don't hate him. I've got no hate.
I think that he has good intentions with this case. I think he wants to solve it, obviously, and I just think, there was definitely, like you said, the PR part of it, and then it seems like he clearly did have an issue with the FBI, so I don't think they got off to a good start.
No. And that goes back to, I think, that his election in 2016, and there's all kinds of stuff online about that.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another day. Even if you do have a problem with the FBI, if they're there to help and they're well equipped and they're going to do a good job, and it's not like the people in charge of the FBI are the same people that were in charge in 2016. That's like a revolving door at the very top of these FBI offices. Those people tend to not stay there for really long periods of time like that. That was a long time ago. It can't be the same bosses, is my point. So you wouldn't have the same people. It's not like you're going to have to interact with the person that you went toe to toe with in 2016. So you just gotta, for the good of the case, you just gotta forget about it. I mean, there's all kinds of instances where the FBI's, come to blows with some entity or another, but then we have to work together on a big event, and we just do it. You do it because it had nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with you. Let's just get the job done and forget all that bullshit. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as a reporter, if you don't get the scoop, if you miss the story, nothing else really matters. I mean, everybody's going to think you did a lousy job. Even if there's all these circumstances behind the scenes, it kind of feels the same with law enforcement. If they don't solve the case, it's like everybody's just going to think the sheriff did it is terrible, you know?
Well, there were times when we were working a case that people thought we weren't in a position to solve it, and we were all smiling because we knew we were going to solve it. You know,
Yeah.
we had a couple of good. So that's why I'm optimistic, and I think they're going to solve the case. But unfortunately, everything's telling me it's too late for Nancy, and I'm not even at all convinced that we'll ever find her, to be honest. And I hate to say that.
Yeah. It's a vast desert out there.
Yeah.
You know, when you're out there, you're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of places to hide somebody.
As always, I really appreciate Maureen for taking the time to talk with me. She's just an awesome resource with all of her experience in the FBI, and I'm also happy that she's my friend. I also appreciate all of you guys for following along. Can't believe it's day 46 now. Again, you know, I want to keep covering this. I don't want to just move on. I think that there are still things happening behind the scenes with Nancy's case. There are other stories that I'm starting to work on too, which I'll have soon. You know, I saw some of your comments like, everybody just get over it, move on from Nancy. It's like, that's just not really the way my brain works. So I'll stay on it. I'll also start digging into some other things. You guys can always send me tips about cases you want me to cover. I read all my messages on X or on Instagram, or you can email me on my News Nation email. And yeah, so appreciate you guys as always. Appreciate you guys for subscribing to the channel and supporting the work I'm doing. And I'll talk to you guys later.